I've been on the journey to discover self since I was born, you know? It's a lifelong journey. When I wasn't conscious of it, my parents knew that and that I needed to be conscious of it. My grandparents, my family, my community laid out the foundation for me. You know, I come from almost 5 generations of African-American morticians. So it's not the obvious connection, the most obvious bridge between that world and filmmaking. And it's something I've been trying to investigate and explore within myself, not necessarily in my work, but just questions about how I got from Louisville, Kentucky, growing up in a funeral home, coming from the family I came from, the community I came from, and the world that I'm in now, where I'm making, you know, films as a cinematographer. So it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly when I said to myself, oh, it's important to, I'm now found my voice, or I'm now discovering my voice, I'm not only interested in my voice. Nah, it's just what it is, you know? What I will say though is that struggle to find your voice is always there, but it's oftentimes about finding a safe space to let that flourish. Howard changed everything for me. I didn't have to defend my projects the same way I feel like I would have had to defend my projects if I went to NYU or I went to USC. It was a given that my projects were going to be supported. I was going to get real analysis, real criticism, real tough love, because my teachers actually loved me. They loved me like I was their son, you know? And you're only going to get that, especially if you're a person of color, you're only going to get that in certain spaces. And the places where you get it generally are places where you're being taught by people that look like you. They understand the struggle, they understand the experience, but the journey has been ongoing. You finish high school and your parents say, you know, okay, you're going off to college, bye-bye. We figured it all out for you. Now it's your job to go out there and reinforce what we figured out for you. But it's interesting, in the African-American journey, I feel like it's different. Like my grandparents and my parents, when they sent me off to college, they were like, we're sending you off to your other family because you still have more learning. There's still more loving for you to be had in order to continue this project. So I'm not just giving you this baton and you're going off into the world and defending yourself. I'm actually sending you to the next stage, which is this other cushion. And so going from the community that I grew up in to a historically African-American, historically Black institution, for me, was a natural progression. You know, one of the things that I've had to unpack for myself is how much aesthetics has played a large part in the culture of helping people memorialize their loved ones. You know, the funeral home that I grew up in wasn't a dark, drab place. It was a place of celebration, and my grandmother had a lot to do with that. She adorned the space with pieces of arts, pieces of texture, furniture that meant a lot to our community and said a lot to people who were coming to help their loved ones make a transition, communicated care. And so I think because of that, it gave me I'm very sensitive about space and the way space is laid out. So that all is sort of, I think, the beginning building blocks of how I became concerned about cinematography, how I've tried to develop my own voice within the respective career art form. One of the things that really strikes me when I think about my childhood is your first job in the funeral home is to set up chairs for all the wakes and the visitations. And there was a rule, you know, you had to line them up perfectly. They had to be an even amount apart from one another. There was a door, a central door that led to the chapel. And at the head of the chapel, there was the casket, and it was perfectly laid out in a very straight line, and it was surrounded by flowers that all sort of tapered off on the side, and there was an open lane between the two sets of chairs that led you right to the casket. So composition, form, balance was a real important design gesture. So, you know, those things stuck with me. I think those are really like the building blocks of how I developed my visual perspective on things. I want my kids to have the ability to sort of do better than me. I want them to be able to take the information that I'm giving them that's imperfect, flawed, not figured out, because I'm a 40-year-old man helping raise a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'm still on my journey to find out who I am. They're getting all that baggage of bearing witness to me on my journey. So it's going to be up to them, and I'm going to try to help them as much as possible filter through all of this and come up with their own concept of who they want to be and how they want to live their life.